Okay, we're going to get into the All-Star game. We're going to talk, are the Blue Jays coming home? We're going to get into Bichette's first 162 games. That's all on the way. What a crazy little week of baseball we have had. And a crazy week here on the walk-off too, man.
Been a big week for us. Yeah, you bet.
So for those of you who have been with us since the beginning, number one, thank you so much. We are about a year into this Toronto Blue Jays focused podcast here. Adam and I, both comedians. Most of you who follow along know that already. And we just decided to do this podcast because, well, all the venues in Canada were closed. And obviously we couldn't do our regular work. And just to stay kind of sane, we decided to dive into our other love, which is baseball and the Blue Jays. And we've done quite well over the last year.
It's been
our
quite the
numbers
ride.
continue to go up. The community continues to grow. It's actually kind of mind-blowing. We've got our Discord that's constantly full of people that are ball busting and talking Jays and all this sort of thing. And we were doing very well on YouTube, pushing close to 5,000 hours listened to and watched, which is just insane to us.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had an amazing pile of guests on the show. We were up to 770 subscribers. So we're bringing this up because, oh my goodness, like what a wild Monday night we had. So Adam and I decided, let's live stream the home run derby. And what were we expecting, bud? Normally on our live streams, we have the same characters.
Yeah, it's 60 to 80 or 100 people.
And sometimes, it's always fun, and it's always the same people. You recognize everyone. We just sit around and talk Blue Jays baseball. We figured it would be a similar thing, maybe a few more viewers from different teams. Anyways, we started streaming this thing. We're about, 15 minutes in? We look down, and we're at 30,000 viewers.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. Yeah, hard to even wrap your mind around that kind of a number.
Like, it was insane, and we never felt anything like it. Like, our comment section was going so fast you couldn't even read it. And, I mean, it was everything from political fights and friggin', like, it was wild. I've never seen anything like hate. Like, we'd been on it for, 4 minutes, and people are like, these guys are the worst. Kill yourselves. We're like, what the?
It was amazing. Yeah, no, it was great.
But out of it, we wound up growing this channel, like, triple the size. We're all of a sudden pushing 2,500 subscribers. So first off, I do want to say thank you to everyone in the walk-off community who has been with us over the last few months, over the last 6 months, over the last year. If you're one of the 20 who started with us when we first started putting these out. But for all of you who are new to the channel, welcome. All of a sudden our views are up, our hours are up. Everything is just going humdingity since Monday. So thank you so much for subscribing and joining the walk-off community here. This might be the first podcast you're watching of us, so hopefully we don't blow this. But no, we're excited. It was wild, man, right? There's no other way to put it.
Yeah, wild is the best word to describe it. I mean, when we first started streaming Blue Jays games and there wasn't many people in our chat, we were doing mostly like play-by-play commentary, pitch by pitch, calling it as it happens. And then, as we get like 50 to 60 people, there's a lot of questions and a lot of topics that get brought up, especially right now, trade speculation, everything like that.
Fun. We're just talking baseball.
And we're reading the chat and we're answering it. I felt almost liberated in a way with that many people where it's like, well, there's clearly no obligation to read chat here. So we got to call the home run derby.
Yeah, that's right.
But,
it was great. It was really fun. Anyways, that's our little preamble off the top here, but thank you to everyone who is following along. We've got a great guest at the end of the show here today. We're going to be joined by Lou Pote, who is former World Series champion with that 2002 Anaheim Angels team. So we get into that with him. He's currently the pitching coach with the Okotoks Dogs, one of the best developmental systems in Canada, sending tons of Canadian baseball players to American colleges and universities, something that was really lacking in the baseball scene in Canada up until about 10 years ago. So we delve into that with him, which is very cool. We also sat down with Kirby Sneed of the AAA Buffalo Bison. We're going to be releasing that interview on Monday. So great chat with him as well. Keep your eye open for that. Okay, we're going to get into the All-Star game. We're going to talk, are the Blue Jays coming home? We're going to get into Bichette's first 162 games. That's all on the way. On Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast, and on YouTube, The Walk Off Podcast. Quite a showing at this All-Star game, my man, for the Blue Jays.
They did us proud. You know, we put a lot of work in voting to get them there, and they did us proud.
Didn't they? Simeon with an RBI. Vladdy with a home run. Teo with a double. Vladdy becomes the youngest MVP in All-Star history. Loved watching it. And my goodness, man, like I haven't enjoyed an All-Star game that much in so long. Little bit of good news for the MLB. This is a stat that's been going around. Major League Baseball All-Star game, 8.3 million viewers. NBA All-Star game this year, 2021, 5.9 million viewers. All of a sudden, baseball is not sitting second or third fiddle, starting to gain some interest. And it's because, man, all these young stars, all this excitement within the game that has become such an international game. You start looking at Shohei Ohtani and all the friggin' amazing Dominicans and Cubans that are playing throughout, the Latin American players. Liam Hendricks, who closed the game for the American League out of Australia, right? Probably the top reliever in the league right now. Just a really cool thing to be watching going on in baseball. You gotta love to watch it, man. 8 of the 24. So here's a cool stat too. 42 first-time All-Stars this year. 8 of those 42, 24 years of age or younger.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
That's so good.
And you know what? MLB screws things up at every turn, but one thing that they have kind of sort of done well is start to accept the fact that, you know what, some enthusiasm in baseball, some youth, some excitement is a good thing rather than being the old man who's like, unwritten rules, nobody should be smiling, everybody should be doing their thing, right?
Yeah, well, and like these stars are likable, which is something they haven't had in the last 10 years, I would say. I mean, Mike Trout, one of the best in the game. Not that he's not likable, but he's pretty friggin' vanilla.
Yeah.
Right? Like, as good as it gets in terms of baseball, but in terms of, like, personality. I mean, he's what you want in your... If you're a ball team, he's what you want.
Oh, of course.
But if you're the league... And then other guys like Bryce Harper, not exactly likable.
Yeah.
So... I don't know. A lot of fun young stars who are enjoying baseball, and it just looks like, 14, 15-year-olds out there. Like, they're having fun. It's great.
That is a really good point. They looked, and it felt like a bunch of kids out there having a good time. Like, my goodness, man, the home run derby was so much fun. And watching Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto go head-to-head and then go into, 3 overtimes they had to do to decide who was advancing in that first round. Like 2 of the biggest stars in the MLB right now, in Soto and Ohtani, and it was just so fun. And of course, Pete Alonso winning it all. Very cool.
Repeat for Pete Alonso. First to do it since Ken Griffey Jr.
Wild. Yeah, another thing about the All-Star game.
Sorry, did you see the heat map on the pitches for Pete Alonso?
No.
During the home run derby? Oh, if you get a chance, Google that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, everything was right in the same spot. Like, just... Whoever was throwing to him in that home run derby, like...
Was doing it right.
They were doing it right, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was wild to watch Pete, because once he got into a rhythm, it was just like swing, home run, 2 seconds, pitch throwing, swing, home run, 2 seconds, pitch throwing. Like, it was wild. And it was so cool. And you know what? Ohtani was the same way. I know in his first 3 minutes, like his first round, I think he hit 1 out in that first minute and then hit 21 or whatever it was to tie Soto in the next 2.
Yeah. No, he really came back after struggling early. I don't know. I like this new format of the home run derby. I know they did it at the last one as well. This is a lot of fun to watch. This is a lot better than formats in the past.
And it's too bad that Tatis dropped out of it and Vladdy dropped out of it. Totally understandable. And I mean, they were there at the All-Star game and put on a heck of a show, so you can't get too upset with them. I know Vladdy became the third son of a major leaguer to homer in an All-Star game that their dad also homered in. So it's the Guerreros, the Bonds, and the Griffies. Pretty elite company there.
Really cool.
Yeah. All right. So the Toronto Blue Jays back in action tonight, playing the Texas Rangers, the bottom-feeding Texas Rangers. Definitely could use some wins there. Here is the thing. We are post-All-Star game, which means do or die time. Trade deadline approaching very quickly, and there are some big decisions to be made by this front office, my man.
Absolutely.
And there's two sides to this coin, and I know a lot of Blue Jays fans are starting to lean towards maybe they should be sellers.
Oof.
Which is, here's the thing, right? Simeon would probably get you some pretty darn good prospects. Is that what we're after? I don't think so. Not that prospects aren't something you wish to accumulate, obviously. Robbie Ray having a breakout season. I would much rather see them be sitting down with Robbie and being like, what do you think about 3 years, $36 million, something like that, rather than trying to trade him and get whatever you would for him. I don't know how you feel about this, man. I think you're on kind of the same page as me, but like you can't necessarily gauge where this team is going to be next year. Yeah, you hope that they take a step forward. You hope that Vladdy repeats this MVP-like season he is having. You hope that this first 162 games Bo Bichette has put together over the last 3 years is replicated next year. And why don't we just, before we move on with this trade talk, stop for a second and acknowledge what Bo Bichette has done in his first 162 games as a shortstop with this team, if you want to go through some numbers here, my man.
So let's just first throw this out there. 2019, he was called up midway through the season. 2020 was obviously the short season, so even though he played a full year, only got 60 games, and now here we are, 80 games into this season. So first 162 career games, that's a full season. It took him 3 years to get there. But players in MLB history with 30-plus home runs, 200-plus hits, 20-plus stolen bases, 40-plus doubles, 100-plus RBIs, 100-plus runs scored, and a 300 average in their first 162 career games.
Give us the list.
Bo Bichette, that's it. That's wild. Like, just the fact that he's hitting 300 through his first 162 career games is insane.
Like, this is how he's adjusted to Major League pitching, by hitting 300 with a ridiculous leg kick.
Yeah. The most violent swing you've ever seen in your life, and he's still hitting
flying,
it.
Hair flopping, everything is just... So this is all leading up to me saying, I think we put our chips in. You don't know if this offense is going to replicate what's going on, and I truly believe if we keep plugging holes in this pitching, that things could come together for this team. And I'm not alone. You listen to the announcers at the All-Star game. No announcer could say enough good things about this Blue Jays team and the fact that they feel that they are going to have a good second half. Nobody's a fortune teller. You can't look into your crystal ball and actually know what's going on, and maybe receiving assets back for these free agents that are just probably not going to be re-signed is the move, but I don't think it is. You just get so few opportunities. And maybe like the most likely thing for the Blue Jays right now is that they get into the second wild card spot, which means they're playing an away game, winner take all, 1-game playoff with probably the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not what we're after. But I think you've said this before, man. Get there, and then let's roll the dice.
Yeah,
get into the dance, right? Get into the playoffs and see what happens. Are you in agreement? Do you kind of feel that's the move here?
Yes, and I also just think that, like, in terms of developing a winning mindset in these young guys, I think it's important to just go for it, whether we ultimately fall short or not. I want this team of Vladdy, Bo, Teoscar, whoever else sticks around. I want them in that winning, like playing to win atmosphere. I don't think it sends a good signal to them. Like if we start selling, we're
Yeah.
just taking our foot off the gas for the next 80 games. Like that's not good for anyone's development. I don't know. I always think
Especially, you know what? I really like what you're saying because in a lot of ways, losing is what builds character.
absolutely.
Look at what happened to this team after they got swept out of the playoffs last year by the Tampa Bay Rays. Look at how intense and in shape all these guys came in. And I'm not just talking Vladdy. Vladdy obviously is the big shining light of that, who lost 45 pounds and is in the best shape of his life. And it shows how good he has become.
Yeah.
Foot speed has increased. All of this stuff, he's put it together. But you know what? Alejandro Kirk came in a lot better shape. Bo Bichette came in ripped, like just ripped, right? And Marcus Semien was brought into this organization to build that winning culture, to impart this knowledge that he has onto this young core, because Marcus Semien has been known as one of the top leaders in baseball for a couple years now. The things that he did in that Oakland Athletics dressing room, the A's still talk about. So if your whole goal in bringing Marcus Semien in was to show these young guys how to be pro ball players, how to chase a championship, how to get into the playoffs, trading him seems completely against everything that they brought him in to do. Yeah. No?
No, 100%. I can't see this team selling. I can't.
Yes.
I know there's like a legitimate argument to be made to sell.
Yes, there is.
I just don't think that's what's realistically going to
happen. And man, I could be overstating this too, but I truly feel like there is something special between Vladdy, Bo, Teo, and Lourdes. Like they are like brothers out there. And watching Bo and Teo and Vladdy FaceTime Lourdes in the 9th inning of the All-Star game, like it gave me goosebumps, man. Like these guys genuinely care and love each other. It's insane. Like they've come up the ranks together, which is something that this organization has done so well. And they're trying to repeat it again right now. This Shapiro Atkins regime is trying to do the exact same thing in AA that they did with Vladdy, Biggio, and Bichette.
Did you ever have a friend group, maybe like in high school or in college or anything, where like there was a group of like 4 or 5 of you, but one of you was like clearly just there because like they lived right next to you, but like
Yeah.
it's like we're all best friends. We kind of live all over the city, and then like my neighbor is also the same age, so like he's there, but that's whatever. That's kind of the vibe I get with Kevin Biggio right now.
Isn't it?
Like you mentioned FaceTiming Lourdes in the 9th inning. How do you think Kevin feels about that?
I don't know, man.
Like he came up with those guys too, and
he won the championship in 2018 with the Fisher Cats with them.
Was the first one up. A lot of the early promotion of the Blue Jays was Vladdy, Bo, and Kevin, and he's not getting the FaceTime call. I don't know. I just honestly, like, maybe I'm reading way too much into this.
And maybe they called him when it wasn't on national TV. Who knows, man?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I've, for a long time, felt like Lourdes was not expendable, but like, I thought he would be traded away. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
I'm starting to think, I know, like, I'm like, what would it do to this dynamic if you trade? And I mean, these guys are still professional baseball players, and trades happen. And obviously, I'm not saying that it would unravel everything that's been built because Lourdes is traded. But I'm just starting to think that maybe Gurriel Jr. has a bigger part to do with this clubhouse than he is given credit for.
Yeah.
And he is a little older than these guys. You know, he's turning 28.
Yeah.
And they look up to him.
The big brother, man. That's what it is.
The big brother. And another thing that's really cool is that it really, I love what Major League Baseball is doing with this mic'd up stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And just watching Bo speaking Spanish to all these guys was so awesome.
Yeah, for so many reasons. It was
for so many reasons,
incredible.
Especially after
the Stephen A. comments.
Which honestly, and I don't want to get too much into it, I think what his message was taken a little bit out of context and kind of blowing up a little more than, you know, like he was kind of saying that Ohtani could be marketed better if he spoke English, which in America, probably true. That said, Ohtani is so marketable, it is insane. And if MLB can't market Shohei, then it is on them. It is not on Ohtani not being able to speak English. No, please go ahead and step in here.
I mean, yes, but we just at the start of the show were talking about the All-Star game having some of the highest viewers in recent memory, outviewing the NBA
All-Star
the
game.
NFL.
Yeah.
You don't think any of those viewers came from Japan? Right? Like,
it's true, man.
Probably half of them.
We were just talking about it's become such an international game. And I mean, even our teammate here on the walk-off, Lewis Foster out of Australia, right? He was saying that there is becoming a bigger and bigger group of people who are paying attention. I know there's a better vocab for that. I'm sure there's an actual word to describe what I'm saying, you know,
Yes,
but there's a market there that wasn't there before. South Korea continues to grow their market despite MLB's best attempts to squash it at every chance.
Yes.
You know, like, make it difficult on these places to watch. But they do it right across the board, like blackouts and all this stuff. But anyways,
you're right. Though. The mic'd up stuff is great. I really think, I don't know why every single player isn't mic'd up for every single game. Like, find that in the budget and start doing that. Like, we don't necessarily need the live, like, we don't need to replace Buck and Dan Shulman with mic'd up players talking to each other, right? But, like, have the audio so that for the highlights in the morning, when something cool happens, you've got it. Like, it just makes no sense why. Like, when Vladdy hit that home run in the All-Star game and Fernando Tatis Jr. was mic'd up for it, right? Yeah. Like, he's mid-conversation with the announcers when that home run is hit. That's gold. Yeah. That's so amazing.
Even the little quip Vladdy said as he ran by him, he's like, Fernando, you don't need to move.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny. And it's so fun. And this is what baseball has been lacking for years. And it's really cool to see these kids in the crowd in Denver, these 6-year-olds that are just in love with these kids, that are just showing so much emotion and having so much fun out there on the ball field, which is what baseball is all about. It's what sports is about. Have some fun, right?
Look, I grew up playing baseball. I love it to death, but I'll be the first one to admit that, like, for 3.5 hours, it can be one of the most boring games there is.
Sure.
Even when you are, like, into the minutia and you can appreciate small ball and, like, the mind games going on with the pickoff. Like, even when you can appreciate that, it's still dull, right?
Yes.
But pound for pound, it has some of the best highlights in all of sports. And I would bet my house on that, right?
Yeah.
It's just crazy that, like, in this age of TikTok and 15-second attention spans, that with the highlight reel that MLB can put together, they haven't been able to capture that 15-second audience. And I think miking up players would go a long way.
Yeah.
And I just think 3-hour game or not, they can gain an audience with the younger crowd.
What mic'd up has shown me too is baseball is its own language, right? Spanish, English, Japanese, Korean, whatever you're speaking. All these guys have a deep respect for each other, and they go out of their way to try and make each other feel comfortable. Like, it was really impressive to me, man, to see how many of these English-speaking Midwestern USA guys that came out of Tennessee or wherever it was, right? Speak a little Spanish and can be like, they're kind of both broken Spanish and broken English being talked back and forth, and they're goofing around and having a good time, man.
Yeah,
It's just
it's great. I mean, you see like the clips of Shohei Ohtani in the dugout, and they're playing the games with the balls, and they're trying to bounce them onto the whatever. Like it's just it's funny because a lot of these guys, like you said, Vladdy speaks English.
Yeah.
Right. It's just he has a translator because there's a
national TV.
There's a big difference between like putting your foot in your mouth with your buddies in the dugout and like saying something that like is weird or maybe embarrassingly bad, and like you just get a little bit of ribbing, like, oh man, you just said whatever about doing something with a goat, and he's like, oh, that's not what I meant.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, okay, but on national TV with reporters and again with your buddies in the dugout, especially when you've come up together for the last 5-6 years, they kind of know the words that you're familiar with.
Yes.
So when they need to communicate something with you, they can use words in English or in Spanish or whatever that they know you're going to recognize. Whereas when a reporter comes in with their fancy degree and it's just like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, I didn't catch any of that. Right.
Or even worse, another thing, I mean, we're living in a time where every word people are saying on a celebrity stage is scrutinized and gone over. And, like the last thing Vladdy needs is cancel culture, all of a sudden breathing down his neck because he didn't communicate what he actually felt properly because he's speaking his second language, right?
And therein lies kind of the irony of the whole Stephen A. Smith thing. Just like, that's why these guys need their translators and a filter on them, because they're pro athletes. They're not hot take experts.
Stephen A., who speaks perfectly good English, it's his first language, still managed to put his foot in his mouth. Right?
Exactly.
So,
exactly. So I think that sums it up perfectly.
That's funny. Yeah, I love that. All right, so let's move on from that. We do think that the Blue Jays are going to be buyers. Okay, but actually, before we move on from this trade thing, I want your opinion on Kris Bryant, because there are a lot of Blue Jays fans that are pushing pretty heavily for this guy, and he has had an incredible career to this date. He's 27 years old. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, so he'd be a bit of a rental. Obviously, if the Jays were in on him, it's a package type of thing. I can't see them just getting Bryant. I in my opinion, think that they would be after Kimbrel and maybe even another starter. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But Bryant himself, personally, I'm not sold on him, man. He had an incredible April. He looked the most like himself he has in years. I know one of the things that Bryant came out and said in the offseason is one of the reasons he feels like he has had a down year or two is that he's not enjoying the game anymore. And yes, the Blue Jays are an incredibly fun team. I'm sure that his joy would go up a little bit there. I could be just a homer. I mean, every team has fun, obviously, and has those goofs in the clubhouse. But the Blue Jays seem to be an extreme example of it. But again, that could just be me. But my problem is I'm not buying into his consistency, right? Is he going to actually put up better numbers than Kevin Biggio? Because if he's not, then I don't like a sideways move. And I know we've talked about this on a few podcasts, man, but I'm just curious, as the trade deadline is getting pretty darn close here, what your thoughts are on Kris Bryant, and if you think yay or nay.
The one thing that I do like about Kris Bryant that makes it not quite a lateral move is I'm a big guy on the intangibles. And he's been there, done that, right? Like he's got a ring.
That's a really good point, actually.
Maybe that is enough to justify the trade. Right? Does he put up better numbers than Kevin Biggio? Offensively, probably not. Defensively, probably
doesn't take much. Yeah.
Probably an upgrade there, right? But he's also got the hey, I know what it takes to get a ring, and there's value in that, right? We've
And he
been
does have the skill set to literally put a team on his back.
Yeah.
We've seen it happen numerous times. We've seen it this season in April. So Kris Bryant does have that superstar pedigree that could come out at any time. And his ceiling, obviously, much higher than Kevin Biggio. And we're big Biggio fans here.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
I don't know. I might have just talked myself into it. I wasn't planning on having this conversation.
Maybe you want Kris Bryant.
I just, all the value we've placed on Simeon being like the professional and the great example and whatever. He doesn't even have a ring.
That's true.
There's something to be said for having a ring, and being like, not just like a fringe guy. Like Joe Panic has a ring.
Yeah.
Right. Difference between Joe Panic and Kris Bryant is about $100 million. So.
Yes. And as for this Toronto Blue Jays team returning to Canada, so the hope, the dream was that this takes place July 30th. Now, Mark Shapiro has come out and said that tomorrow is kind of the Jays' deadline to move the entire franchise from Buffalo to Toronto for July 30th. And if they don't get a response from the federal government by that time, and the feds are dragging their feet on this. Now, Trudeau did come out and say that mid-August they're going to start allowing Americans to cross the border, vaccinated Americans to cross the border. So that's good news. And I know that the next date that would be available for the Jays to return home would be August 20th. So maybe that's a little bit more likely. Who knows? Maybe we finish this podcast and we get a big announcement that the Blue Jays managed to pull it off and that their proposal was accepted by the Liberal government and that baseball returns to Canada and to the Rogers Centre, which would be incredible. I'm doubtful.
Well, how do you feel about this? Like, that's the stats. That's the facts. But how's your gut feel about this news?
My gut is that there's no way that they come back July 30th, especially after this All-Star game and the COVID outbreaks and the fact that Aaron Judge, now this is speculation, but it seems like it's being reported that Aaron Judge was the Yankee that wound up spreading it to everyone else. Jonathan Loizaga and a few other Yankees already tested positive for it. The Red Sox have some positive tests, and the Boston Red Sox are a problem because that 85% threshold that MLB teams the goal was for vaccinations, most teams have hit it. The Boston Red Sox are not one of those teams and probably have the fewest amount of players vaccinated on the team. I don't know where their numbers are at. I mean, it's still probably pushing close to 80% or something like that, but it's not quite there. And I know that Alex Cora even came out and said he was worried about his players, that these unvaccinated guys are, you can get really sick. Like the vaccinated guys have tested positive, but are asymptomatic, right? So the vaccine's working or whatever, Yeah.
I think it's asinine. It's so frustrating. It's just that they're not able to get this done.
Yeah.
It's so...
They can do it for hockey.
It's so arbitrary and bullshit that this isn't happening.
Yeah.
The fact that we can't safely have a team where it's 85% vaccinated come and just hang out at the stadium for 3 days.
100%.
What are we actually worried about? We're going to have CFL games with full capacity stadiums, but everyone's just going to live here and be fine. I don't understand the actual concern. MLB teams have a higher vaccination rate than the Canadian
Everyone
population.
Yes.
So are we just it's so frustrating.
Hey, I'm with you, dude. Another thing to touch on here that makes this situation even more frustrated is this proposal that the Blue Jays have put forward. This proposal that Mark Shapiro has worked so hard on, making sure that the health and safety of Canadians is looked after and priority number one, has even stated that unvaccinated players will bubble or face huge repercussions. So what more do you want them to do? We're 18 months into this thing. And I know that baseball on a lot of people's radar is not a priority. But boy, would it be nice to be able to go to a ball game in Rogers Center with the roof open at 30% capacity or whatever they wish to do. I don't see the problem here. And who knows, man? Like, the more I read about this, the more it looks like it's not even that the government is against it. They're just dragging their feet. They're taking their time. They don't care. This is very low priority on the Liberal government's list of things to do, obviously. And maybe it should be, but at the same time, if you're going to approve the NHL and give everything that Montreal Canadiens want to do a go like that, if you're going to do that, if you're going to agree that the MLS can come play soccer here, and yet the Blue Jays take a backseat, I just don't get it. Anyways, we'll move on. But that's where this whole thing is at. It doesn't look like July 30th is going to happen. It looks like we're going to be waiting on August 20th. I really hope I'm wrong, man. I hope we finish this podcast and news comes out and we look like we're dummies for even.
Maybe the only thing I could say is, like, maybe this July 30th thing with the, like, we need to know by today or else our next opportunity is August 20th. Maybe that's a bluff. Maybe that's just a hurry up and would you read our freaking email, please? Maybe it's just a bluff. Like, if the government approves it on July 25th, are the Jays really going to just stay in Buffalo until the 20th of August?
I don't know. I mean, I've moved. I know how much work is involved. Like, it's really, there is a little bit more to it than these guys hopping on a plane and showing up at Rogers Center, right? Like, they've got truckloads of equipment that needs to come back to Toronto. Like, semi-truckloads they need to load up and get in here.
Yeah,
so
don't come at me with your facts, your reason, and your logic, all right? This is a gut thing. This is a gut
You're like,
thing.
I don't care. Make it happen.
Make it happen. Come on.
I'm with you, buddy. All right, so the series this weekend is against the Texas Rangers. Probably the last thing to touch on Blue Jays-wise here before we move on to the MLB. Baseball is back, and I'm so happy. Robbie Ray starts tonight. Hyun-Jin Ryu starts tomorrow. And then Steven Matz with the start on Sunday. Sure could use a sweep here. I mean, I don't wish to... We say this all the time. I hate even saying sweep because the Blue Jays find a way to lose games when they shouldn't. But second part of the season. Let's say this is a new chapter, baby.
New chapter. Yeah. Let's get her done.
Did you have anything Blue Jays wise to add, my man?
No, that's about it.
Okay, so we already kind of touched on the fact that the All-Star game did have that COVID outbreak. I mean, the Red Sox and the Yankees game was canceled yesterday. They had a big idea. We'll do the Red Sox Yankee Showcase. Everybody loves that most heated rivalry in baseball, right? And nope, no go there. So that's a real disappointment. Although there was a trade last night, right? Jock Peterson going to the Braves. So hopefully that is a domino, man. I think we're going to start seeing things heat up here trade-wise.
Well, Jock Peterson of the Cubs. So we know the Cubs are selling.
The Cubs are selling.
You don't get rid of Jock Peterson unless
Nope.
It's a whole garage sale. Everything must go, right?
Everything must go. They're in rebuild
Kris Bryant is gone. Kimbrel's
gone.
gone. So it'll be interesting.
Even Kyle Hendricks is probably gone. Yeah. I mean, if they move Jock Peterson, which is one of the most attractive left-handed bats in baseball, to fit into a lineup as a guy off the bench, part-time, comes in against lefties type of thing. It's going to be interesting, man. We're down to it. Trade deadlines in, what is it?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah. And now that some big pieces are starting to go, like, that's kind of the dance, right? Like, nobody quite wants to pull the trigger because nobody wants to underpay or overpay. But now that first piece is gone and Jock Peterson, not that he's like the biggest piece, right? But
no,
a legitimate name.
He's a legitimate name.
He's not Rowdy Tellez, right?
Exactly.
So
that's a great example.
Now that the kind of the benchmark has been set, here's the market value. Now you can kind of measure your trade offer against the Jock Peterson trade that was done. So I think we're going to see some stuff pick up steam over the weekend. There's going to be a lot of phone calls from GMs, and I expect by Monday that we're going to start seeing
some stuff happening. Absolutely. Looking forward to it too. Anything else to add here, my man?
No, I just want to throw this out there. I think Aaron Judge is going to get dealt.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know.
That is a bold prediction. I like that, though. Wow,
hot
that
take,
is
but
very hot take.
That's
the hottest take I've heard in a while, my man.
I've been thinking about it all over the All-Star break. Aaron Judge is due for another big contract. He's getting older. He can't stay healthy. That whole Yankees team is old, and they never seem to rebuild. They just add more expensive old free agents, and it seems to work. But
they may be in for not a rebuild, but a major retool.
And I think Aaron Judge is a prime candidate to go, because if you're a Yankee, I don't know what kind of contract you would realistically offer Aaron Judge. I think he's more questions than answers at this point, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's dealt.
That's a very, very interesting take. I like it.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to the program, hope you enjoyed. All of our regulars, of course, super appreciate you tuning in. And we'll see you Tuesday. We do our live stream every single Tuesday, so we'll be doing that. And you can follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast, on Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast, and, of course, on YouTube, The Walk Off Podcast. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Have a great night.